Hello, I'm Nelson Liu and welcome to Western Perspective. COVID-19 has had a significant health impact to Australia, but an economic shock is looming, with WA heading for a recession in the next financial year.
So as a result, we are expecting much smaller economic growth for 1920 and an economic contraction in 2021 before returning to growth beyond that, which is consistent with the IMF and other international forecasters around the likely profile. And I want to make one point in particular, is that we haven't, as a government and as a treasury, like Australia and like the rest of the globe, haven't had to model these things before. So I do want to emphasise that these figures are uncertain. They're our best baseline modelling at this point, and the data we're starting to see around revenue collections, certainly post-March, are confirming what we expect the revenue decline to be, about $1.8 billion for the remainder of this year and for next financial year. So that is, of course, a significant fiscal impact on revenue, and of course we are now very much focused on job creation and supporting the economy, so we're very much in a spending profile.
WA is set to take a $12 billion hit to its economy, expected to be wiped from the budget over the 15 months from April. I talked to political expert Dr. Ian Cook about the expected recession and the implications for you. Dr. Ian Cook, thanks for joining us. Ben Wyatt has revealed that WA is heading towards a recession next financial year. What's your take on the situation?
Well, I think this is exactly what everyone's expecting. The questions are very much around how big the recession's going to be and what sort of hole we've got ourselves into. We've done okay with iron ore and sort of resources have given us a bit of a buffer, so it's not looking as bad as it could have done. But we're still not clear on exactly how bad it's going to be.
COVID-19 has resulted in a lot of money spent in economic rescue packages for businesses, workers and job seekers. This has played a major part, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The government's response has been effective in terms of ensuring that sort of money to some extent is in people's pockets. So certainly, a lot of money has been spent to try to keep people going, and I think largely it is doing the job.
So what does this recession mean for young Western Australians?
Well, this is the real question I've got in terms of the sorts of services and sorts of support, the extent to which governments are just going to be so desperate to sort of rein back the spending and address the deficit that they're really going to have very little money left over for these sorts of initiatives, and young people need quite a deal of help. And I think they've been significantly affected by the COVID virus. But as I say, my concern is that the government just won't have any money, and young people particularly will suffer.
Will this mean that there will be less jobs for young people and, more importantly, a financial struggle?
I think in the short term there are going to be fewer jobs around, and to some extent young people are sorts of people who struggle because older workers have been in the workforce for longer. So they often find it harder to compete, and it's going to be a very competitive market because a lot of people are unemployed, a lot of people are going to be looking for work, younger people are going to be competing with older people who have more experience, and they'll generally sort of lose out. So I think it's going to be a very tough time for young people. The
state government have promoted themselves as good economic managers. Does this put a big dent in the fact that they were aiming for a surplus?
I think that in general, governments around the world are just going to sort of put their hands up and say, COVID. When everyone says deficit, you said we'd be in surplus, COVID. So I think we're going to get a lot of explanations around economic management that are basically, blaming the virus for everything. Now, I don't think that's absolutely true, but it's very hard to differentiate what the virus caused from what poor economic management was prior to that. But, the government's just going to say, virus, not our problem. We didn't cause it. Don't blame us for poor economic management.
And finally, what does the government need to do to avoid an economic situation they can't improve?
Well, I think that we've got to be very careful. We are expecting a sort of second wave, and I think that we just can't go into the same sort of economic policies and general social policies that we had then. We are in a hole. We don't want to dig it much deeper. So I think we're going to look for very careful response should outbreaks occur again. Our economy just can't bear being shut down again.
Dr. Ian Cook, thanks for joining us.
No pleasure.
And now, AMA-WA's President Dr. Andrew Miller provides this week's update on COVID-19.
Hi, thanks for your time. A few quick answers to questions I've been getting all week about COVID. Firstly, big announcement next weekend, big relaxation of restrictions going into phase 3. Is this going too far in WA? My sense is that with the state border closure, probably whilst we're taking a big risk as a community with this, it's not an unreasonable risk at this time on balance, and that if we can improve our testing, then we'll be able to move forward. If we start to see lots of small outbreaks, then we're going to have to go backwards. But at this stage, with the Premier's determination to hang on to the hard state border, prevent leisure travel, big plane loads of people coming in from the east, all mixing whatever bugs they got on the way, whatever Qantas tell us, then I think that it's a reasonable thing to proceed, knowing that we may have to take some backward steps as we go into winter, which of course is a dangerous time for respiratory viruses. Speaking of which, next question, do kids with runny noses have to stay home from school and get a test? Complicated answer. They should be staying home from school if they have respiratory symptoms, yes, particularly if they have fever, cough, but runny nose is included in that. Should they get a test? Well, can they get a test? There's a bit of a gap here between what the government are telling us should happen, which is that anyone with respiratory symptoms can get a test, but then when they go along to the clinic, it seems that some of these kids are being turned away. I've heard that story more than enough times now for me to believe that it's not just an occasional event. So, government needs to get it straight. What are the operational marching orders for these clinics? Who's making the decision as to whether a kid is or is not going to get a test? And it seems that certainly colds are still going around the schools. The social distancing between the kids is probably not much better than it was at the start of all this, although it seems as though the ability to do hand hygiene and some cleaning certainly has improved. The idea that COVID won't spread amongst school children is a myth, and not surprising to see 100 students being quarantined away from school in Victoria already. We're going to see that repeatedly through the winter. There are other people being rejected for tests as well when they go there with respiratory symptoms, adults, and still we cannot get our pre-op admission patients screened for COVID, although we do have telehealth now for anaesthetists at long last from the 22nd of May, which is a good thing for those thousands of people who need their elective surgery done now. We need the brakes taken off the elective surgery in coinciding with the phase 3 easing of restrictions. Pretty ridiculous that you'll be able to go to a pub for a drink but not be able to go and get your knee fixed at the hospital. That's giving you all sorts of strife and getting worse as time goes by, so let's get that sorted out. The other question is, how would a ship full of COVID end up in Fremantle Harbour? Lots of egg on lots of faces over that one. Multiple government departments being responsible for something, answering to multiple different bosses, has got to be a recipe for problems like this miscommunication. We're used to dealing with government. We know how that goes. We need to understand now exactly how the government has fixed that and other problems to do with bringing people into the state by air or by sea. We're certainly not going to fix it on the advice of veterinarians on live sheep ships. Good luck to the sheep, I say, in that respect. But government, tell us how you're going to stop the next ship full of COVID. Who would have thought that that would come from the Middle East, where of course it's rife at the moment. Should we be wearing masks on public transport? Yes. In places where social distancing is not possible, then the masks you get at the IGA or the pharmacy, a good idea. Reminds you to stop touching your face, means you're not going to cough droplets on people, and you're probably not going to inhale their droplets as easily. What do I think about Pete Evans? I don't. Thanks for your time. See you again soon.
And that's all for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you, Ivan and Sarah.
Thank you, Nelson. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest on our website and social media pages.
No matter where you're watching, look after yourself, stay at home, and have a pleasant evening.
Take care.